Well, hello again, and welcome to Assessment for Learning. We're going to look at some general assessment strategies as well as some specific ones for ELA. So here we go. When assessment is seen as learning for students as well as teachers, it becomes most informative and worthwhile for both alike. So I want to preface that assessment is not always just about that unit test or those marks that go on the report card. That's actually a very small part of assessment in school. Assessment really needs to be part of the whole learning process. And for you as a teacher, assessing the students where they're at, especially if they are fulfilling your learning outcomes, is absolutely important for you to know how to plan the next day, the next week, the next unit. So thinking about assessment as learning and not sort of that end guillotine kind of idea, I think will situate it better for you in there. Okay, I'm sure this is a little bit of a review, but formative, it depends on if you're reading about assessment. We called it assessment for learning, and then there was assessment of learning. Those were the kind of the big terms for a while. They're not quite as popular anymore, but if you see them in articles, you'll know what they are. So formative supports the learning during the learning process. It involves both teachers and students in ongoing dialogue, descriptive feedback, and reflection throughout instruction. So the audience are the students, the teachers, the parents, and examples of formative assessment are you're questioning, you're listening, you're observing, lots of summaries and lots of reflections. Summative or assessment of learning measures how much our students have learned up to a particular point in time. So kind of what you think of as assessment. It involves determining the quality of the learning that has taken place at the end of a unit or theme, term, semester, school year. The data audiences are policymakers, program planners, and supervisors. That's ultimately kind of what summative assessment is for. It also ends up being for students, teachers, and parents. Examples: graded quizzes, tests, midterms and final exams, district and state tests, okay? Or provincial tests if we want to flip it into Canadian terms. Okay, let's look a little bit at reading and writing formative and summative assessment. So how can you actually assess if your students are hitting the reading and writing marks or standards that you want them to be hitting? So formative and summative assessment should happen on a daily basis. You should hear your students read and write on a daily basis. So this could be in calendar time, it could be in writer's workshop, it could be through your guided reading and writing, but you should hear them, even observing them in the classroom, on a daily basis. That's important. You can't think, okay, I'm just going to do my official assessments 4 times a year. No, it's a daily thing. Use those reading and writing conferences or that guided reading and writing time to observe the child as she or he reads and writes. So you might even say, I'm going to watch you as you write so that I can help you become a better writer. You need to see what is produced and how it is produced. So that one-on-one time is so crucial for you to assess where that student is at. If you're actually watching a student write and you're seeing them get bogged down in spelling, you can say to them, I want you to get all your ideas down. Don't worry about spelling. And that will free that student up. But that's absolutely crucial that you do that in those individual or conference times. You have to, again, here's my term, laser focused. You need to have specific strategies to assess and to push the student along in these particular conferences. So during like a reading conference or a guided reading conference, you might say, bring me a book that you can actually read pretty well. And then you say, why did you choose that book? What do you think the reading level of this book is for you? Is it too high? Is it just right? Is it below your level? And then you say, read this part of the book to me that they already are familiar with. And then let's discuss your strengths and what you need to work on. So again, laser, not just, hey, let's do some things during our time together. Writing conference, you can say, what are you doing right now as a writer? So are you incorporating new vocabulary? Are you expanding the character? Are you working on including more emotional engagement? Like, use those writing terms. Are you revising? Are you editing? Use those actual terms in here. Really listen to how the child responds, because how they, and you can actually write it down, write some things down. Okay, you last week in reading and writing conference said you were going to work on using more juicy vocab words. Okay, so let's see that now. Again, being laser focused. So write it down because you won't remember. Decide absolutely what to teach. What do you need to teach them in that particular moment? And that may change. You may have to do that right on the spot. Be like, wow, they have absolutely included super amazing vocab words. Now they need to work on their spelling, or they need to work on the revising, or they need to work on their character development, whatever it is. Okay. Don't talk all the time. And that's funny because I'm talking all the time. Don't talk all the time. Let the students talk in the conference, right? It's not your time to be like, you need to work on this and this and this and this. It's your time to listen. And I think that's a really important part of that guided, that conference time in there. Encourage your student to read and write a lot. I'm going to allude back to the lecture on writing and Stephen King's quote about there's no way around how to improve than to read and write a lot. And so that's an assessment, a very formative assessment. Are you seeing that these kids are actually reading a lot? Are they actually writing a lot? And if they're not, that's your job then to encourage that. You also want to, in your formative and summative assessment, you want to be looking at surface features of reading and writing and content, or the actual message. So the surface are things like the handwriting, the spelling, the punctuation, those kind of things. But you also want to look at the content. What is the message this child is really going after? So you're going to assess on both of those. If we only assess on, did they spell things correctly? Are there enough, I asked for 3 sentences. Are there 3 sentences? And we miss the message. We miss a really important part of the assessment tool. And like everything in teaching, are you getting the message here? There is no one way to evaluate children's reading and writing. That's going to be based on on who you are as a teacher, your philosophy of reading and writing, and your connection with that child. Sorry, no holy grail. I should have my holy grail here with the big X through it. There's no holy grail for assessment. Okay. However, there are some foundations of which you always want to be thinking. And hopefully you're starting to see these triangles. You're seeing them in your dreams because they're just becoming so much a part of just how you think about teaching and assessing reading and writing all the time. So again, here we go. Here's your reading assessment pyramid. You want to be keeping this in mind. The same thing. Here's your writing assessment pyramid. You want to be keeping these concepts in mind all the time when you are assessing, either formatively or summatively. Okay, so what should students, let's try with an S, be able to do at each grade within these pyramids? So before we try to assess, we need to have a sense of grade level reading and writing. And you might be like, but I don't know what that is. I'm just starting. That's what we're going to have a look at right now. So you can look at the Alberta Programs of Studies. That is a pretty good guiding document for what should grade 3s be able to do? What should grade 6s be able to do? Those literacy and numeracy progressions, those Alberta education competencies, those are really good guiding documents to be looking at sort of generally where you think these students should be at. We will look at the reading Fontes and Pinnell benchmark assessment. We'll be looking at these in class because they actually, for a standardized assessment tool, I think they're useful to give you a sense of where students should be at. And I really, and we'll have a bit of a go with those. And then grade level writing exemplars. You can go online and look up some grade writing exemplars and sort of see, okay, I'm going to be teaching grade 4 in 3 weeks. I actually don't know where grade 4s should be at. So this is the benchmark system. The Fontes and Pinnell, you've probably seen or heard about leveled readers. So this is where the concept of leveled reading books or readers comes from. So if you are teaching grade 1, they're basically saying a grade 1 child should be able to read anywhere between level E and level J in grade 1. Grade 2 is K to M, those kind of things. And we're going to actually look at these books, and it will give you a sense. But if you're like, I've always seen these letters, but I never actually knew what they were, this is what they are. So it's definitely an assessment system. Okay. What I'm going to do is I've given you exemplars of student writing examples. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to stop me, and I want you to go to whichever grade is yours, and I want you to go and look at these actual examples. What we're going to do is we're also going to look at these in class on Monday, but I think it's good for you to have a sense of where each of these grades the students are at. I've put all the way from not meeting expectations to exceeding expectations for some of you in here. Okay, so I would stop me right now and go and have a look at this, but I am going to keep going. Okay, this is the evaluation tool that SD76 uses currently. It's the Emap. So if you hear teachers talking about Emap and you're like, what the heck is Emap? This is what Emap is. Basically, excelling, meeting, approaching, and beginning. I've circled this because if your child, so this is going out to parents, if your child receives an M for meeting, he or she has achieved the grade level outcome to an acceptable standard. If your child receives an E for excelling, this demonstrates a deeper level of mastery within the high level outcome. The trick is lots of kids should just be here. That's where we're expecting them to be. We're expecting them to be meeting grade level outcomes. However, this doesn't look good. This looks like a 75% because it's the third. And so people are still equating it to percentages. So that's going to be a tricky thing for you. Parents will come in and be like, why is my kid not in the excelling? And it's like, well, because they're meeting the grade level standards, which is exactly where we want them to be. So again, be thinking about when you are looking at these, sorry, I should have said this before. When you're looking at these examples, and we're going to have a look again on Monday, be thinking about where do you think they would be, where they would be standing on this particular evaluation or assessment tool, because this is probably a tool that most of you will end up using if you stay in Medicine Hat to teach. Okay, I also want to just show you, this is a general resource for assessment strategies, and Natalie Rogier, and I'm just going to bring this up here. I'm just going to go here, and this is the website, and basically she has 3 books. Here we go, book 1, book 2, and assessment for learning strategies. So if you go here, she actually has some really great, hang on, sorry, if this makes you ill, some just really practical strategies like email questions and entry exit cards, first of 5s, quick exercise that can be used as pre-assessment strategy. This is where students provide their personal responses. Like, she actually has really great practical ways to assess. So she has, I'm just going to go back to this. Book 1 is pre-assessment strategies, book 2 is formative assessment strategies, and book 3 is summative assessment strategies. So again, I would go and have a look at these are not particular to ELA, but they I just really liked, and I think that it's a nice compilation in there. Okay, finally, around assessment, I just want to show you this tool because rubrics, you have all dealt with rubrics probably in elementary, junior high, high school, and here at the college level. So I think you're pretty familiar with the concept of a rubric. Rubrics just show the kids kind of what you're expecting before you summatively assess. However, rubrics to create take a long time. A good rubric takes a long time to create. So here is a rubric site that that is decent. Again, it's just a tool, but this one, if you go to, so say you go to reading and then you go to analyzing information, you don't have to fill all this in, so don't worry. This can even just give you some ideas of how to actually write the terminology of a rubric. So you go here and you say, okay, I want a rubric that talks about identifying important information. So you go there, boom. For student lists all the main points of the article, having an article in front of them, student lists all the main points, but uses the article for reference, yada, yada. Again, here, if you want to identify detail, recall several details for each main point. Again, I've never used this exactly, but I've come on here to get ideas of how to phrase rubrics and kind of what does a 4 look like and what does a 1 look like for these different ideas. So again, this can be a tool that you could use. I wouldn't probably just come on and be like, yep, I'm just going to, here we go, boom, fill in all these things. There's my rubric, I'm done. You have to analyze to make sure that it fits your particular situation. But again, it's a tool. It's a tool that you can use to your advantage in there. Okay. That's a quick romp through assessment. We will be doing a little bit more looking at the student examples, but do have a look because it will give you a better grounding when we go to look at how to actually assess them in class. All right, take care, everybody, and we'll see you soon.